Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I will show you how to sew a Boned Bustier using my first PDF pattern. To make the bustier we need a fabric. In this case I use jacquard. It's good to press it well before we cut it. We also need a lining, fusible tailoring interfacing, you need a foam for cups. I use 5mm, bias ribbon instead underwear channeling, a separating zipper, underwires, rigidline boning, mine is 6mm, and my bustier pattern. The link is in the description. I also made a sewing planner, which makes the work easier and helps me with my projects. First we start with the cutting. As you can see, the pattern has a seam allowance of 1 cm and we cut along it. The front of the bustier is without a seam in the center and we put it on fold, but if you want you can do by adding 1 cm seam allowance in the center front. For the main part of the bustier, we also cut lining and interfacing. For the cups, we additionally cut only the interfacing. When cutting the foam cup, remove the inside seam allowance, also at the top edge. It's necessary because we have to sew the pieces together by zigzag stitches. As you can see, leave the seam allowance only along the bottom of the cup. Press the foam firmly, do not shift when cutting. We start with interfacing all parts of the bustier. This is necessary to have a good shape. It's good to use fabrics with a slight stretch or no stretch when making a bustier with lining. We mark the central part of the cup to not make a mistake. Then we connect the two lower parts of the cups, sewing at 1 cm. When it's ready, press seam allowance to the center. Top stitch at 7mm. Mark the center and attach the upper cup to the lower cup. press seam allowance to the top and the top stitch at 7 millimeters. To make the foam cup, we touch the two parts together and sew them by zigzag. We do the same by connecting the lower cup with the upper part, making sure that they are close to each other, because if there is a distance between them, they will not grip well. In this case, I will use bias cotton ribbon instead underwear channeling. We cut out one side, then fold and press to cover the other side. We place the finished ribbon on the seams inside of the cup and sew to the edge of the ribbon. It should cover the entire zigzag. Then we repeat on the other seam. And that's the result. It looks beautiful as with underwear's channeling. Now we have to connect the fabric cup with the foam one by sewing 5 millimeters. We put the seam allowance to the fabric cup and top stitch approximately at 1 millimeter. We press well to give a good shape to the cup and be careful not to flatten the shape. To its ready for connect with the bustier, we sew zigzag along the bottom of the cup. That is the finished cup looks like. And now we begin to sew the main part of the bustier. We start by connecting the sides to the front. Sew at 1 cm. Press the seam allowance to the center. We make the other seams in the same way, but we press them to the back. We have to measure the boning, and should be 2 cm shorter than the top edge and 2 cm shorter than the hem. Top stitch at 7 mm to hold the seam allowance where we insert boning, and we do the same on all the seams. To stay inside the seam, we make a small zigzag 1 cm from the top edge. We do this on all seams. When they are ready, we put the boning inside the seam allowance. And now we have to sew the zipper. We separate the two parts and place them at the two edges. We use the zipper foot to sew it and sew close to the teeth, approximately 5 mm from them. We connect all parts of the lining in the same way that we sewed the fabric bustier. Then press the lining well. When the lining is ready, connect it to the main bustier and sew on 1 cm. Press the seam allowance to the lining and top stitch 1 mm from the edge. Press that the lining is not visible from the outside. Open the zipper and turn inside out the zipper area. After that, flip the lining over from the top. Attach the lining to the zipper as close to the zipper.It as possible. Turn the lining over. Bring out the corner of the zipper well. After that, press, and that's it. Turn the lining inside out. Sew the hem from one side to the other, but leave a small unstitched part in the middle. Turn the lining inside out and pull out the corners of the zipper with these movements. Press that the lining is not visible from the outside. Turn the hem from the cup area inside out and sew it. Sew up the cup area, but first remove the sticking out lining. Attach the cup to the bustier by stitching it at 7 mm. After that, sew the bias ribbon over the edge of the cup without sewing on the body. Sew the first stitch along the edge of the ribbon, approximately 1 mm. Then you make a second stitch on the other edge, but this way we sew on the body. Be very careful not to bend the seam. Make tiny dense zigzag stitches on the end of the channeling and cut the ends as close as possible to zigzag stitches. Insert the underwires in the channeling and make the same zigzag stitches to the end of the channeling. Cut the end of the ribbon as close to the zigzag as possible, and that's it.